Where are Nero, Mimosa, and Noelle? Is the question I wanted to ask, but chapter 359 has actually revealed where Noelle has been for the past 7 days prior to chapter 354, the start of Judgment Day. I actually had a whole video recorded going over the places the three characters went immediately after the ending of chapter 336, whether or not they truly believed Asta was gone from this world, their grief, their struggles, and more importantly, the training and power-ups they would get to prepare for their rematch against Lucius and his paladins. It was all ready to go. I had the thumbnail, I had the pictures, I had everything ready for it to be edited and uploaded to YouTube right before the leaks came out for chapter 359. And funny enough, exactly what I predicted for Noelle in both that video and a video I made back in April of 2022 ended up being exactly what Tabata ended up doing with her. Having traveled back to the Seabed Temple, Noelle came face to face with a mythical creature of the sea, revered as a god to both Kahano and her people, Leviathan, and it chose Noelle to be its contracted host, unlocking a brand new transformation and regaining access to Saint Stage. And while all of it was a beautiful reveal showing how Noelle overcame her grief, denying that Asta was truly dead and choosing to find a way to fight back against her newest threat, it still meant my video unfortunately had to be scrapped. But I could still do one on Mimosa and Nero. Because just like Noelle, the two of them would have realized that time and time again, Asta has cheated death and done the impossible, and that even though they think they saw him die with their very own eyes, they know that it's only a matter of time for him to fight his way back to the world of the living in order to save the day once again. And they wouldn't just sit around waiting for him to return. No, the two of them would go off and find their own ways of getting stronger. That way, when he does make his grand reappearance, they can fight alongside him. And the perfect place for them to go to try to get that strength would be the current home of the elves, Elysia. Because in case you don't remember, the last time they trained there, it actually worked out pretty well for them. Under the guidance of Dryad, they became much stronger than they did from their 6 months of training in the Heart Kingdom. And that was only after 3 days of training. Imagine how much more powerful they could become with twice as much time. Which is exactly what they had, as Lucius was kind enough to stall Judgment Day for 7 whole days. And in those 7 days, Dryad would instruct the two of them in exactly how to reach their full potential, unlocking the godlike powers they would need to stand side by side with Asta, Yuno, and Noelle in order to take down the biggest threat the entire world has ever faced. Starting with Mimosa, her main role is that of the healer, which admittedly she already does a pretty damn good job of, being able to save people who are seconds away from dying and restore them back to full health. But the main problem that she has is that despite being a royal, which means she should have a very large pool of mana, she runs out way too quickly. So, knowing that this is her main problem, Dryad would more than likely instruct Mimosa on how to be much more efficient with her mana usage, and in fact she might also try to find ways for her to make it easier to draw in mana from nature. That way she doesn't have to spend as much of her own mana, and she can save those reserves for when she really needs it. And that way, we won't run into a situation like we did at the end of the Spade Saga, where when she was trying to heal Asta back to full health so that she can rejoin Yuno and Marioliona in fighting against Lucifero, she was only able to restore him back to partial health where he was just barely able to stand. Also, speaking of Asta, while it has not been directly stated outside of their romantic interest in him, Mimosa has been clearly shown to be essentially Noelle's main rival in the series. Because throughout it, the stronger that Noelle became, the better of a healer Mimosa became. The two characters, they kind of go hand in hand when it comes to power-ups, and now fresh off the reveal of Noelle's new contract with Leviathan and her new Valkyrie armor, Mimosa is primed to get one as well, which could possibly mean her forming a contract with Dryad, which would be the perfect partner for her. Because Dryad being a creature similar to the 4 Great Spirits means that she would have an insanely large pool of mana, almost infinite in fact, which would be the biggest fix to Mimosa's main problem of running out of mana much too quickly. Now, Mimosa is a character who has received a lot of hate from the fandom for ironically being way too good at her job, which honestly I don't understand, because everyone needs a good healer and that's exactly what she is. But most of the people really want to see her actually get involved in some action, doing a little bit of the kicking and the punching. And with her contract with Dryad, we could see her unlock some brand new spells that actually could help her be more combatant than, her current flower cannon and whip. Although, if we're speaking personally, I do prefer Mimosa to stay in the role of a healer, but it would be somewhat cool to see her throw hands with someone every now and then. And then let's also not forget that Dryad also has the insane ability called the Gift of Prophecy, which essentially lets her see into the future just like Lucius's Future Sight, which is an incredibly broken ability, and having that on their side will just make things a lot easier. Now on to Nero, which her power-ups and her training is much harder to figure out, because her magic is just so unique and versatile that I honestly cannot think of a way for her to train to get stronger than she currently is. And that's not to say that she can't get stronger, I just don't have the mental capacity to think of a way for Tabata to write her to do so. The only thing I can speculate on is what she might be able to do once she re enters the story. And for me, the very first thing would be a major boost in speed, which is kind of given at this point, considering how fast all the characters have gotten. And if she's going to be able to help out during the final fight, she's going to need to be able to keep up with them. And then the next thing is actually a cool ability that I think would actually be really useful, and that is the ability to lock powerful attacks and stop them in place. I'm thinking similar to how Yuno stopped the angels from destroying the noble realm a few chapters ago. Having Nero be able to do something similar to that at a much smaller scale would actually be very useful, as well as being able to lock the power of her enemies and unlocking the full potential of her allies. And that to me would be really cool abilities for her to have and actually stay in line with the abilities she showcased so far. And you know what? Now that I'm actually looking at the list and reading it out loud, I'm actually kind of realizing that pretty much everything I'm reading off for Nero to be able to get post her training is essentially what we've seen Yuno do so far in the Judgment Day arc, just on a much smaller scale. Oh, but here is one thing that is different that Yuno would not be able to do. We have to give her bird form some kind of ability, something that it could do where she would be useful in that form as well. And I don't know really what you could do, like kaiju, make her into a giant kaiju bird. Anyway, that is where I think these two characters currently are, doing exactly what Noelle did over in Elysia, training up to actually get much stronger, so that when they make the grand return into the story, they can fight alongside Asta when he finally makes his big return.